Cool. It's all on, and it's like Donkey Kong. We're live, and yes, we finally got our guest, and he's lingering in the green room as we speak. So we just wanted to make sure. First things first. Can you see me? Can you hear me loud and clearly? Sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? So once I've got that confirmed, we can rock on and kick the show off, as it were. So let's wait for the comments. It'd be interesting to see what sort of lag there is. I was just speaking to my mate. We're still waiting. Greetings. Are we getting loud and clear? It does take quite a while. Wow, how long has it been? 10 seconds? I'm still waiting for a confirmation. Otherwise, I'm going to have to terminate the live stream. We don't want to be doing that, do we? Right, here we go. We're just going to whack him up there. Yes, 5 and 5. Cheers, Robert. Awesome. Right, so there is a bit of a delay. There's probably about 10 to 15 seconds by the look of it. So I'll bet you guys are wondering who the guest is tonight. So many of my, especially older followers or subscribers will know this guy. So without further ado, we're going to bring him in right now. Say hello to my mate Pete. There he is, aka Maverick Indoors.
Maverick out of order.
Maverick out of order. Yeah.
Thanks for
I just turned the volume up because I've got a little boy upstairs, so hopefully that wake him up. So yeah, that's all good. So how are we doing, Pete? It's been a while, mate.
All right, thank you very much, Daz. Thanks for inviting me on. Good to see you again since we tallied up with Roach that you had on obviously last week, but the three of us went out for a wild camp, didn't we? And just before Christmas,
that's
down
right,
your
mate.
neck of the woods. So yeah, it was good. So yeah, good to tally up with you tonight, mate.
Yeah, all good, mate. It never ceases to amaze me, technology. You know, just stuck up here in the mountain and then talking to my mate all the way down in southern England. It's like, wow, just like that. Bonkers, mate. It really, really is. And of course, you do lots of, you know, tell the guys what you think you need to tell them as regards of what you actually do for a living. It's like personal training, so it's body and mind stuff, isn't it, really?
Yeah. How long you got? We could just do a separate live stream and that wouldn't be enough on some of the stuff. So I'll try and, because you know me, I'm very explanatory and very in-depth.
I know, mate. You got no more than 5 minutes, son.
Basically well-being. I started basically just sort of in a condensed version. I've always been physically active until I obviously had hip problems, and a lot of our followers will know, and people obviously listening and watching tonight, I had 2 hip replacements because I could hardly walk. I was going up and down the stairs on my backside, on my hands and knees, and now the operation 2017, 2018, and I can get back to what I call my normality frame of mind where I could still do things physically. But prior to that, I did judo when I was 8. I took up yoga when I was 13. During my mid-teenage years, I got really interested in Zen, Eastern philosophies, the development of the mind, that sort of thing, and the mind-body connection. And then through the years, I did martial arts. I did practical work, but then did things on the sideline as part-time, all to do with well-being stuff. And then from the early 90s, I actually focused on that as my main line of work, well-being, from personal training, teaching personal trainers, mentoring, life coaching, changing lifestyle, mind, body, wellness, that sort of thing. Sounds a little bit sort of pseudo, oh yeah, wellness, but basically connecting this and connecting with this, and then just having a sense of well-being. And it's seen me through a lot of challenges. I've coached people one-to-one. I've done seminars, gone into corporations doing well-being, safety and travel, proxemics, all that sort of thing, basically for either your own personal welfare, well-being and safety. So I've sort of amalgamated those in the year 2000 when I established what I called Mind Wise Motivate. And then since then, I've been doing basically just teaching, coaching, either, especially in the past few years, on Zoom, and also one-to-one and seminars. So that's basically been it. But I've never, as you know, I've never covered it publicly, which I don't mind doing now, helping with prepping and survival, that sort of thing. But I've never sort of divulged it, although people have known about it and wanted me to include it. Oh, you know, I'm into life coaching. Can you do a video on it? It's not been a majority rule viewing subject to my channel, so to speak. So, you know, we've spoken about it over the years ourselves. But yeah, so just basically highlighting so people go, oh, blinking, I didn't know Pete was involved in all that malarkey. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's interesting, though, because a lot of the stuff, like especially the personal training, you know, it was a physical environment, hands-on. So of course, when the issue, as I call it, happened in 2020, everything changed. I mean, how did that affect you as like, it's a challenge. I need to move through this. I need to figure it out. So you ended up doing it online. Now, how was that transition from actually meeting people in the gym, putting them right when they're doing workouts, etc., and then doing it online when you physically can't be with them? How did you cross that bridge, as it were?
It was a challenge because obviously when you say, I don't like using all right, I'll say it once, but I'm not going to say anything else related to it because it just really naffs me off, lockdown and the past. So the situation we had, the restricted situation, when it happened, it was like standing on a furry carpet of security and work and it being pulled from under my feet. And it was like, I haven't got anything now. And that was my mainstay. That was my bread and butter. So I had to, within 3 weeks, I thought, how am I going to transfer and do the transition through real-time video and Zoom, which obviously was then getting more popular for other businesses and work, even social things and what have you. And that basically held it together. It took me 3 weeks to look into, although I'd experienced Zoom, which is a platform I use. I knew about it, but I didn't know how I could actually use it myself to do my work. So it took me about 3 weeks, and it was a totally unknown quantity. It was a situation that no one had ever experienced before. Everybody's lifestyle was being brought to a halt. And it was basically, in a nutshell, I was able to transfer to Zoom, and it was an unknown quantity for my students as well. And I was blessed that everyone went, yeah, we'll give it a go. And there had a few technophobes that weren't into computers, weren't into social media. So I did one-to-one sessions, introducing them to Zoom, how to use it. And now they can do it blindfolded. So I've been really blessed where I'd say 95% of my pre-standing students and clients transferred to Zoom. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know what I'd have done as far as my income. I'd been knackered. So that got me through. And I was quite humbled, actually, by the feedback I got from all my students who were going through, as you can imagine, as loads of people were globally, a very hard time with mental health issues, not being able to go out, not knowing what to do, not being prepared mentally for a challenge like this, let alone not being able to go work, shopping, social distancing. But the mindset that creates into the unknown, which was causing the mental health issues, after some of the restrictions start to be lifted over the past 12 months, I was really humbled by getting feedback as saying that what I did, and again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I'm just saying how important it is for the mind-body connection to help with your well-being in any situation, especially if we're talking a dilemma with preparedness and survival. I think the mainstay is the mind-body connection before anything. You can have all the knowledge, all the kit, but then if the stuff hits the fan and you're going, wow, this is now kicking off, but you're not mentally ready, it can stun you like a rabbit in the headlights. Do you know what I mean?
So, exactly, mate.
Yeah, it was a bit like that for my clients. And then basically they've got a little bit, it's as if Zoom now has been incorporated in their lifestyle, where we were going to go back to the venues, but because of all the bills, fuel bills, everything else, costs, the higher rate would go through the roof. And financially, it wasn't viable for my students and clients to go back to the venues. As nice as that would be, they've got other activities they're doing. But because the majority of my classes are sort of during a day for retired people and also for people during the evenings that might be still going to work, they've got a little bit comfortable, especially in the cold weather, where they've gone, oh, I'm glad I don't have to go out at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday when it's been pouring down with rain, freezing cold. I forgot to de-ice the windscreen, and then I've got to go to Peach yoga class, and then I get home at 9:30 at night. During the summer, brilliant, sit in the car park, we'd have a drink and sort of have chinwag. But that's 2 months of the year we have decent weather where you don't mind where you go at what time of day. So yeah, exactly. And I think it's helped people as well, not just the subject of what I teach and the classes I do, but the fact people now can go, do you know what, if this stuff happens again, I've got used to using Zoom or a social media platform in real time to do other things, if that makes sense. So there's been a sort of a positive domino effect of where everyone's gone, do you know what, I quite like using the Zoom platform, which is what we use, and not having to go out and I can come back from work, get home at 6, have a cup of tea, digestive biscuit, that'll digest within an hour, boom, switch on the old computer, and Pete comes into my living room. I've got some people that have got the Wi-Fi connection, maybe on their iPad or phone, and they've got it connected to their widescreen TV. So there I am, like a blockbuster movie.
I'll get that as well. I'll get some pictures like sent to me privately on Instagram and other stuff, and it's just got like their frigging 60-inch flat telly in the front room with me on a live stream with a beer going like this. It's like, whoa, scary, man.
It's weird, isn't it? Because when you sort of see it, you think, wow, because you know what it's like when you watch. I mean, I've only got I've had it for 15 years. It does me. I've got my own Sony Bravia. I think it's 32 diagonal. It's only about that big.
Yeah, ours is 32.
That cinematic with the lights turned down, watching a favourite TV or video or DVD or something. It's very cinematic. So I think, flipping hell, if they've got 50, 60, 70-inch wide. So one of them's got this flat plasma, which is about. I know you can't see the tips on my fingers, but imagine if you could. That's the width of their TV screen. I've seen it, and there I am. Monday,
in reality, isn't it? You know, it'd just be like, look at big
it's a bit surreal, really, and it's sort of like, oh, great, and it's really nice because then I think they're even more secure with watching something on a big image. Some of them, sometimes, if they've not been able to have the contact or the connection, they've had to go, oh, I might be looking as if I'm squinting at you during webcam. It's because they're using their iPad because they can't connect it up that particular night because of ISP problems. But the majority of the times they're watching it on their TV screen. So they've sort of the transition of that kept me going. That still kept my income coming in.
Yeah, look.
And it was a hard transition. But
Tactical. Cheers, brother. Yeah,
who's
we got our Tactical, man. Is a dude.
Oh, right.
It is literally yeah, awesome. I'll tell you what, though, going back like full circle, and I suppose it's quite relevant, really, about like mindset and challenges and being able to move from one problem to a better solution quickly. And it's literally, life doesn't really change until you've got no choice and you have to do something. It's like what I say to people, how come, people ask me, said, how come that you lived in a really rough council estate near Portsmouth and you ended up living in Wales on a mountainside? And it's just like, you have to have that vision and you have to focus on whatever you've got to do to physically make it happen and block off all the other crap and distractions and get it done. And then things change. Exactly like you had when, one day you're going to the gym and everything's rosy. Next thing, the lockdown, then, oh my God, what am I going to do? Then you're forced into it. And I think the only way that people are going to advance is if they either they force themselves into a situation, or the situation presents itself where there's no other choice but to do something.
Yeah.
But because the amount of people that say, I wish I could do that, but wishing's not going to do anything. You have to do it. And that's the same thing, isn't it? Like you've discovered, you had to go from one to the other, and no one's going to come along and do it for you.
Yeah. I have one thing going for me relating to that is that, as you know, and I would say the minority of people that follow us and have followed me over the years know that I've done corporate training films for the military, for the Navy, for the Army, safety within the firing range, all that sort of thing. But that's another subject.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I remember saying that when I was in the forces, mate.
Yeah, someone had watched, I think it'd been decommissioned and it ended up on YouTube, and someone went, I know that bloke, and I recognised the voice. It was a younger version of me. Yeah,
I laughed my ass off when I saw it. It was brilliant. Brought it all back. I remember seeing it in training. Yeah, weird.
Yeah, because I was used to presenting to camera, it was easy for me to transition then into what I had to do via Zoom. Whereas a lot of people don't like it. They're very self-conscious that they're on their own, as if they're talking to themselves, into this little circular thing that's in front of them that's taking the information to transfer to the viewers and the listeners. And a lot of people are not used to that. So really, I was really not lucky, but from previous experience, that was a natural progression. But that was because I was used to it. So the practicality, but what's really important, what you've just highlighted, it's a little bit like, I know it's a bit of an extreme example, but the principle is the same, like hostile environment activity training. I've worked with a lot of journalists that have gone into risky areas, war zones, that sort of thing, as one example, which is probably the most extreme. They've not experienced the risk factor and the fear factor they might come across. So they've had to go to reenactments of situations that could arise, get used to it, accommodate it, get used to the fear factor. But then it becomes a conditioning where if it does actually happen, yeah, it's easier said than done, but there is a process psychologically that you can reminisce through that memory so you can adapt to it much easier within a situation environment of fear and risk. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and what you're saying is like, you know, moving from a council estate then into the mountains, if you're used to thinking open-minded and creatively, and I don't mean artistic, but I mean creatively as in using your intuition, if you've gone through those processes quite a few times, when you come to something in the future that's unknown, that you've not experienced before, you can feed off of the experiences of going through the process, not the subject matter, but the process. So when it happens again, it's just easier to adapt. Like me, I can't program a computer. So if you tried to show me the dots and the binaries, and I'd be going, but in a safety security environment, which I've also worked in, I switch on straight away. I'm used to my environmental awareness. I'm used to people spacing. I'm used to threat situations. And for me, that's just automatic. It's not being paranoid, but the majority of people don't think like that because they want to live a nice, easy flowing life. And then when the stuff hits the fan or they're threatened, again, it's another rabbit in the headlights situation where they just freeze. Do you remember, just a sort of bit of a sideline, but it's all very, very much involved the same subject. Remember a number of years ago when you had, I don't want to bring up anything unless you do, certain people in your family and a certain person that was in a provocative, threatening situation. And you were going to some close mates going, look, I need to try and protect that person. I'm thinking of going into self-defense. And the first thing I said to you was, get an instructor that's been in a street fight.
I remember now,
that knows, not someone that's been in, you can learn all the techniques, you know, it can all be how you do your wood breaking, your bag work and all that sort of thing. But then when you're confronted in the street by people that don't think or function like that, and they want to rip your head off, it's another rabbit in the headlights. Do you know what I mean? So it's that sort of thing, and using that as a basis. If you always got an open mind to adapt to either a threat or a risky situation like we do in prep and survival, that sort of thing, it's an easier transition. So we're not just talking about, I've got all the kit, I know how to use the stuff, I've got all my battery units, I've got my candles, I've got my torches, I've got my MREs and all that. But when it actually happens, if a person then goes, blimey, it's actually happened, just like the past few years, no one expected the nature of what happened to happen. But that's what caught people out. For me, I wasn't expecting it. As far as number 10 being my highest level of what is the big preppy survival risk factor is like social instability, financial crisis, fuel, food, that sort of thing. That would be sort of number 10 because that's quite a normal thing that could easily happen. On level 3 to 4, when I was asked, that was what happened over the past couple of years. So when that happened, it was like, geez, I didn't think I'd globally with a situation.
Do you know what, mate? Speaking about that, when it first started, right, I'll be honest with you, I fell for it, right? I was taking all of the precautions. I changed my shopping habits. I was ordering it online. When it was delivered, we had like a little porch area, and you know, the food would be there. It will be cleaned and wiped, passed into the house to let dry. Once it was dry, we'd use gloves and we'd put it all away. That went on for a number of weeks, right? But I still didn't wear that thing. And I didn't, you know, hand sanitize. I didn't do the social distancing thing because that wasn't a thing immediately at the outset, was it? It was just right, boom, lockdown, that's it. Christ, all the shops are shut, etc. Then when I started looking into it and seeing all of the BS behind what was going on, it immediately changed. And of course, lots of us, and I guess lots of us watching, you guys watching in the chat right now, and even on the replay, will come to the conclusion, hold on, something's not adding up here. This is pure BS. And when lots of stuff was being uncovered to what was going on, then it was a completely different mindset. And then, well, personally, you know, I never wore one of those. I never got one of those. I never social distance. I, not purposely, but you know, you remember we used to go into the supermarkets and you had all those arrows on the floor and you had to walk in that direction. Well, I'm a creature of habit like most people. So when I go to my supermarket at the time, I would always go in there and follow the same route round. And it just so happens that it was complete opposite to these arrows. So I thought, well, I'm not changing it, and I'm not going to be a sheep and walk where an arrow tells me to walk anyway. So I carried on walking against the grain, as it were. And some old granny come up to me. She said, "You're walking the wrong way." And I said, "No, you are." And I just carried on about my business. But, you know,
you once said, what, one foot in front of the other? I thought that's how you walk the right way.
I wish it was with me at the time, mate. Oh, it was classic.
Yeah, it's always like you think, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that one.
So many people have literally just woke up to what's going on. And I know personally a few people who fell for it and had the poke, as it were. And they've actually said, you know, looking into it now, they're never going to get any more. And there's a lot more people actually coming out and saying that now. Yeah. And, you know, like we said before we come on air, you know, what I wanted to ask you at some point in this live stream was, at this moment in time right now, what would be your immediate points of interest to focus on as regards to your prepping lifestyle of what is going on, or what you deem to be going on out there in the world, moreover here in the UK?
Yeah, blinking out. How long you got?
Just run with it.
Well, you know, the things that we've talked about with certain global, let's say,
entities
that have got 3 letters.
Yeah, 3-letter agencies. Yeah.
That's what I think now. I think we're living in a different era of prepping survival, considering it started really during the Cold War in America, where you have your things to live, and if that's taken away, have you got the backup? Prior to that, prepping per se didn't really exist. A lot of people, we refer to it in the old days. The 4th of November 1929 was the Wall Street crash, which when you look at it was by design. It wasn't an accident. So then you have to think why, and then what that created. It created people all of a sudden didn't have work, were starving, didn't have food. So then they had to go into their survival instinct and go back to homesteading, because that was lifestyle. So things like that we might refer to as prepping in the past were basically lifestyle. It didn't come out of, as we relate to it nowadays over the past 20, 30 years, that what happens if this was taken away from us living a level lifestyle? Let's make sure I've got things that if that's taken away out of my control, I can adapt to it and fall back onto my reserves, either way of thinking, my abilities, and the things that I need to get by. That only really kicked in from the Cold War, from the late 60s and 70s in America, to actually create that as a mindset for prepping. Now, I think we're living in an era of prepping psychology, whereby it's not just about, oh, if we run out of petrol, we know all that. Your bags of pasta, your long life, we know all that. But it's actually situations, as you've spoken about, which I've not had a chance to watch all of them, but I know that your viewers would have seen in your live streams. And what you've just said, people are waking up and going, the figures don't add up. Some of the so-called facts and the so-called science, which is being promoted by people that are not scientists, people are waking up and going, what's actually going on here? So my personal point, to get back to the question, so you can see the comparison and my way of thinking, is that I think preppers now going into a different era, where one, for your own sense of responsibility and survival, getting by, is finding out what the politics is to try and dismantle society, which tends to be the way that it's going, because we can see answers logically and thinking, why are they stopping the farmers from doing this? Why are the big corporations like Vanguard, which owns about 80% of all facilities, you'll know about, and BlackRock? When you start to understand that, you think, right, well, food wasn't corporatized until after the Second World War. Then banking started to get into it. We've all seen probably films of like, invest in pork bellies. You know, that was the era. That was obviously a comical aside in a film.
Yeah, I love that film.
Now everything is corporatized, and we know when you follow, as you've said, you follow the trail, the paper trail, the money trail.
Oh yeah,
it reverts back to a monopolization of everything globally, where it's monopolized by one unit of what people call the elitists, the globalists, the bankers, that are actually now controlling all this sort of aspect. So again, that as an angle to reflect on, I'm thinking the people that are making these policies, if the WEF, All right, let's bring it up.
Yeah.
And Agenda 2130/35, if you read those, I mean, I've not read all of it, but I read enough to think, how are they going to be able to do that?
It's all climate change related, all of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can think, it's a game. I've always said for years that we live in a game of human chess. And if you think like that, but you can also try and think, if you're playing a two-man game and you're thinking, well, if I make this move, that will make him make this move. But then he's thinking the same. So we're living in this game of human chess, I think, globally, with humanity controlling society, because when you read the synopsis, it's out there, it's documented as to what they want to do via the WEF and also Agenda 2130/35. You think, how can they do, not how can they do that? They shouldn't, morally and ethically, practically, how are they going to bring this about? Then if you've got any initiative and a bit of sort of open think outside, you're going to think, it's already started. So then it makes you sort of suspicious with any policies that come up. You know, in the UK, we've got a prime minister that wasn't voted for. I personally felt when Liz Truss came in, I thought she's going to be outed soon. And as you know, I was in the Himalayas then. I thought, flipping hell, not only am I going to have withdrawal symptoms, I want to go, let me go back to Nepal and live in the mountains with the Sherpas. You know, I was getting back thinking, when I get back home, and I followed the news once, and it maybe sort of thought, right, that's it. And all the 4 weeks I was out there, I didn't follow anything, but I knew that she wouldn't be in power because I could think ahead to how I think some of this process is going, to think, well, she won't serve a purpose. And lo and behold, when I got back, someone else was in power that was unvoted for.
I know. Do you know what? I done a post on my Instagram account with like a revolving door in front of number 10 Downing Street, and that went down well, because it's true, man. Yeah, Pete, just quickly, mate.
Who ended up with Mickey Mouse eventually going in the final one? Oh, come on, Pluto,
you know what? I'll chuck up on the screen now, mate, just real quick, right? I stumbled across this morning, and I thought I'd share this. Now, most of us have seen a website which has got like the American and indeed now the UK debt clock, whatever it's called, and you can see in real time all of the debt. Well, check this out with the population. How mad is that? So that right now is the current world population.
Wow.
How mad is that? So when you think about that, you've got to ask yourself, well, I would assume any sane person would ask themselves this question after seeing that. How would they know who's died and who's born? But that can only be a guide based upon every birth that's registered electronically now, I would assume, and everyone who's legally died, and it's going to be electrically recorded. But think of all of the people which don't fall into that criteria. For example, all of the atrocities going on in third world and Middle Eastern countries, in sort of various conflicts and poverty, etc. And of course, all of that nonsense is going on in Ukraine, right? So it's impossible to get an up-to-date live figure. And of course, lots of people, especially in overseas, you know, when they give birth, it's not at a hospital, it's at home or at a hut or whatever it is. So that is a rough guide. So when you look at that figure, which, let me just have a quick look, it's just over 8 billion people. So I say to people, right, just imagine, right, now we're going to go conservative on this, 5% of the global population, whatever, I don't know what 5% of 8 billion is. Some smart ass on the comments or on the chat is going to do that for us, right, just to save time. But 5% of 8 billion people. Now, envisage that all of those 5% are seriously evil people without no morals, no conscience, no ethics whatsoever. And just assume out of that 5%, how many of those people have risen to positions of power all around the planet? Now, that should give people new to this a much better idea of why everything is so corrupt and evil fundamentally at the top, if you consider it like a pyramid. So you've got very few people at the top who know everything. And it's compartmentalized, as a lot of people like to call it. And I do like that term, because basically you've got a company of, say, 100 people working in there, and you've got like 3 or 4 top people who know everything. All the rest of them have got their own little tiny jobs to do, and they've got no idea what their job is to do with someone else's job combined, it creates this. They just focused on their tiny little jobs. Now, if you just look at the population and people working and doing this, I mean, I used to work in the defense industry, making like weaponry for the armed forces. Okay, a lot of it was like secret stuff. We're developing like smart missiles. This was back in 2003. Okay, so the little that I knew, I was just focused on building that smart bomb, that smart pod, smart torpedo missile. It was all sorts of various types. Now, I knew what that was going to be doing, but I didn't know exactly how it worked. I was just given a set of drawings to build it. Okay, so if you put that idea into all of these people's in positions of power, they know what's going on because they are being exposed as being linked to other entities. Like you rightly said, follow the money, and that will always give you answers which no one is going to really find in the mainstream. So when you think of all of that going on, it's no wonder that we live in a world of mess, as it were. Now, I can't remember the exact quote, but someone quite famous, I think, a long time ago said, evil people only exist when good people do nothing, or something like that. So I think lots of people are waking up to what's going on. They're not sure of what to do because during the lockdown, lots of people probably don't know, or especially didn't know back then, that there is serious amounts of protests going on all around the planet, especially in London. I used to watch it on a YouTube channel called Rutley, and it was practically every day or every week there'd be hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, near on 1 million people protesting in and around London, and not 1 second of it was broadcast on any mainstream media. So even that alone, especially people in the local vicinity, are going to know, oh my God, what's all these people doing here? And they start asking questions. And then maybe if they click, why wasn't it on the news? And it might prompt them into asking questions. But the most important thing people need to do, no matter what it is to ask questions and keep asking them until you get the answers which you think make sense. And I think we're seeing that a lot now. What do you reckon?
Yes, mate. I know obviously you were saying that to me, but obviously for your listeners as well, which is really poignant, you saying that. And you know how my mind ticks. I'm tuning into when you were going halfway through that. I don't want to get morbid about it, but that same process happened. I was only doing my job from 1933 to the end of the Second World War.
Okay? Absolutely.
So, you know, there's also cognitive dissonance that you and me have spoken about a hell of a lot. And I think even now you've got people that are quite prepared to go back into what happened from the beginning of 2020. So that is the dilemma we are in, because when you create a sense of fear, you put people in a situation which is the rabbit in front of their headlights, which we've used as a metaphor a number of times. When you put people into that, which by design was created, you can do that for two reasons. One, because it's justified, and for people's well-being, you need to keep them under the screw so that when you get through it, they go, oh, thank God they did that. And there's another reason, which I think is applied the majority of the times, is you create this fear situation. And I think we've been through the biggest human experiment that's on record ever to see how people react, considering in England we had the Behavioural Insights team, which were basically the consultants that governed what the government, when we had the Three Stooges behind their podiums every night going, okay, what we've got to do this week.
Oh, wasn't that ridiculous, wasn't it?
So, and that department, again, you just think about where's the paper trail? That was originally a government department. Someone had the right idea and thought, well, we'll make out it's not, this was the basic process. I'm not saying it's a total fact, but this is how it came about. We don't really need this department anymore, so it was considered unnecessary. So then it wasn't used, it was decommissioned. And part of those same people went, let's now start our own company and make it a corporation, and we'll be a government consultancy. So that's what it became. So yours and my taxpayers' money paid for that by someone going, yeah, let's privatize it, and then we can make more money, and we can still, instead of being government civil servants, which basically, again, when you look into the civil service, they're the ones that create a lot of the policies that we're made to believe that the people we voted for, the politicians, are actually creating and processing from either us lobbying them, but it's all from a civil service, which again, I don't want to get too political, but let's face it, we've been a bit political so far. But that's not the objective. We're talking about lifestyle and how things are affecting our life for not necessarily our own benefit. It was Tony Blair, dare we bring him up, who actually instigated when he was Prime Minister, and he started to process the civil service to be more, and I don't want to get whether you're right wing or left wing, but the fact was more left wing. So there is more now of a socialist principle. Here we go.
Here we are.
I wish I hadn't put that up now. It's turn my stomach a little bit.
A member of the Fabian Society, which I exposed on the last live stream, and what you're seeing there on the screen is a stained glass window. One of the founders, a female member, lives in the south of England. And what you're seeing there is the Fabian Society, and I'm going to zoom into it. And what they are doing is symbolically reshaping the earth with an anvil and hammers, as you can see there. There's a lot going on behind the scenes and stuff. And also we've had, like I've predicted, some nice guy by the name of S, who says, here we are, 400 million people. So this is the figure that we spoke about earlier, about the population of the planet being truly evil. Now that is a real rough estimate of 5%. 5%. It could be more. I don't really know, but it's just based on my life experience, my research of what I've seen, a rough equation, about 5%. So 5 out of 100 people, truly evil, bloody psychopaths. And when you look at that, 400 million people, you know, in high positions in the military, in secret service, in corporations, in security industry, in police departments, in government bodies, in think tanks, in organizations like the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And when you think about that, and you see that figure there, which S has kindly worked out for us, it's bonkers, mate. And it just goes to show, you know, there's more good people than there are bad people by that basic equation. So like I said, and it does seem to be coming true, you know, evil exists because good people do nothing. And all the time, us, which I deem, and everyone watching here mostly, are good people. So what can we actually do to stop all this madness? Now, one of the basic things which I've looked into is just non-compliance. Okay, and it's very easy to say do not comply. Of course it is, but it's like Roach always says when he was in the military, and he said you can go up to the colonel and poke him in the eye, but there's going to be consequences. So if you are going to make a stand and do not comply, there will be consequences. And the worry that I have is most people aren't prepared to do them consequences, as it were. You know, not paying attention.
I thoroughly agree, mate. And what concerns me, what I've been thinking of recently as well, is when there's non-compliance, or basically we're not talking about anarchy, we're talking about, hang on a minute, I have, all right, human rights. I have the right to express myself as an individual. You're actually just cultivating this thing where if you're confused about your gender and you disagree with it, you're the protagonist for not understanding. And you think, hang on a minute, these things are just not making sense. And I don't want to say the guy's name, but it's
you're going to be cryptic. Go on, mate. You can do it.
AW are his initials. He's just been arrested with his brother in Romania. So what I'm thinking, right now, I'd followed some of his stuff, but I have even more so now. Now he's a guy that woke up people to the matrix, the control, the manipulation of the way global society is going. And they've come down on him like a ton of bricks. Now he's been arrested since May last year, April, I think it was, or no, March 2022. They've been trying to get charges against him where there's no evidence. So basically, even with no evidence now, because he was in a country that's easy to manipulate with their legal system, which basically it's not very controlled and ethical, they've arrested him and he's still locked up. Now, he's said that he's been approached by the elite system to shut up, toe the line, because he's opening a bag of worms for people like we sort of are in a mild way of going, you know, just look after yourself, have a prepping mindset, be a bit of a survivalist. He's gone the total open way, where he's the highest viewed person globally on social media, and he's then seen as a threat. My concern is that, not to say that one shouldn't stand up for your rights and go, look, this isn't right ethically, morally, and humanely. But I think the system, the evilness, let's face it, which you've just highlighted, there's 400 million of them, or 3%, 3 people out of 10 have got a sociopathic or narcissistic or sociopathic, psychotic attitude. Sorry, no, I think it's 3 in 100, sorry. Which is obviously 3%. Who's more mathematics on it's only Tuesday, blinking on, I can't even add up. Yeah, so you get my point. But I think there's an inbuilt system, and I'm going on to the extreme version. When anyone has stood up for their rights, they've been dispatched. Every single person tried to enlighten people, from politicians to spiritual leaders to
musicians, Bob Marley, John Lennon, all of that. Anything to promote peace it's exactly the same as like the NHS and the pharmaceutical industry, you know. And the easiest way to explain it to people who are new to this way of thinking, should we say, is sick people is big business. Okay, so it's not in your interest to create a drug to cure someone, because they won't come back and you won't make more money from them. Keep them, make them a little bit better, but it's still going to have that underlying concern fundamentally all the way along the line, knowing full well that you are going to cream money from them. And there's loads of evidence with GPs being offered, you know, a car, a holiday, if they push X amounts of these products throughout a financial year onto their patients, not really caring or understanding the outcomes of prescribing such pharmaceuticals to these poor people, sick people. But they don't care, because they get that holiday and they're just doing their job, and it's a tick in the box. And like you said earlier, and rightly so, back in the 30s, I'm just doing my job. So Roach coins it a good phrase, and I've not heard anyone else say it. It's the age of the self. And I think that's the problem. When people are more focused on me, screw everyone else, you know, that's great, especially if you're like family first. My little family unit's great, everyone else can go to hell. But at some point you have to question, like I say to my son when I bring up my son, you know, I always promote the idea of like helping people and being nice, and I just lead by example. When we're out together, you know, an old granny just falls over or drops their shop, and I just rush over and help, or whatever it is. Someone crosses the road and I help them. Even pay for someone's fuel when I was down in Portsmouth with my dad, because the guy couldn't afford it, and I paid for his fuel. And I paid for someone's food the other day when we was in Hereford. You don't have to sort of broadcast this. I'm just giving an example. If more people were just nice, and my friend Rex Bear, who's on the Leak Project on YouTube, he always terms the phrase, it says, be the change that you want to see. So if you want to live in a nice society with nice people, no one's going to come and do it for you. Start being that person. And in human beings, as you well know, they're used to picking up vibes of others. So if someone sees someone being nice and smiling, it might make them be nice and smile. And all of a sudden, everyone's being nice, helping each other, smiling. That guy's got no money, he's struggling, he's got a good heart, I'm loaded. Why not give him a few bob to help him out? You know, if that was the way we should move forward, rather than just be screw everyone, I've got all my preps, you can bugger off. That's great, but at some point, lots of horrible people come knocking on your door, and if the world was a better place, you wouldn't have that in the first place, would you? Really?
I think you've got, you know, my angle on it, I look at the psychological side and the mindset. And what we're doing is now, again, we're living in a slightly different era, which, like as you say, Roach's term to it, and also what amalgamates with that as well, excuse me, is quick fix. We live in an automated society. Younger generation coming through. I would say the generation before, obviously I'm a bit older, quite a bit older than you, but old enough to be your dad's son. So just listen to what I'm telling you.
Don't you start that, like.
You're not having a lollipop, all right? No,
don't you push rush, though, yeah.
You had to be there, folks. It's a joke between me and Darren. We've done a few times. What's all that about? But anyway, it warms our cockles of our heart, having a laugh. But yeah, you're talking about being benevolent. Sometimes it's not an ego thing. Sometimes it's a nice feeling to think, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but do you know what? I could just about afford to give that person 15 quid that really needed it to buy those things. And it does make you feel a sense of, I don't know, just a nice sense of being human. But the problem is we're living now in a different modern society, which by design, I think, is disenfranchising the human psyche from being benevolent, from being free thinking, from thinking outside the box, by this bombardment through either social media, TV, things that are a stimulus to then make people not think for themselves, to then not have the attitude of being benevolent. And I think that also contributes to people thinking in a very narrow way, because at the end of the day, all people really want is an easy life. I'm not talking about being lethargic or just being late. Want an easy life. They want a fair day's pay for a fair day's work.
Yeah.
They want to have a roof over their head. They don't want big luxuries. Some people do, but some people are quite content with living a family life, having their kids, hoping the relationship's going to survive for the rest of their life, being with their family. And that's a natural thing that's genetically built into us socially and within how we identify with people, society. That's being disenfranchised. And I think what that's now creating is people for not to think outside the box, because fear mongering can be incorporated, which then desensitizes people going, do you know what? There's something not right here. They get into this fear zone or this uncertainty zone. And what they do is they go, that old phrase, better the devil you know. Now, my philosophy always been for a long time, and I've said it to my clients, and they thought, oh yeah, I thought of that. Better the devil you don't know, because when you try and achieve that devil you don't know, metaphorically, you think, I've got there. Blimey, it weren't a devil in the first place. Now I've got rid of that devil crap. Does that make sense?
Yes. 100%.
So it's like, I'll bet the devil you know. So let's just stay in the the limbo zone. Same as people go, oh, it was meant to happen. Right. So you're walking down the road and you left your teenage daughter to go into a shop and they got mugged. So what was that meant to happen? That's normally said by people that haven't got the guts to get off their butt and go, I need to change this. So they normally, and I know it's quite a normal phrase, you think, yeah, it's quite normal to say that, but it tends to be, it's not, oh, it was meant to happen. Oh yeah, it was in fate. We create our own fate. I do believe sometimes you come across, when you open up a certain vibe or a way of being, it somehow attracts those people, and you come across them by chance. You might be thinking about something, they phone you up. You might be thinking about a book. This happened to me numerous times, and someone's gone, oh, there's a book I was reading. You think, blinking, I was only researching that a couple of weeks ago. But that aside, that's a different subject. But people will tend to lean on, if it was meant to happen, oh, it's meant to be. And that is also becomes a bit of a norm in general with society, where they don't get off their butt, question things, which the likes of us, we do. But there's still many people out there, and I would say it's the majority of society, that haven't got to the point where they've gone, hang on a minute, the wall's being pulled over my eyes here, or this isn't quite right, or it's not true, it's not a fact, because it's not affecting them at the moment. So the better the devil they know, living a life where it's just fair day's wage for a fair day's work. So a lot of that is to do with mindset, and you have to actually break out of that, not necessarily by a physical experience to go, oh, I experienced that, now I can think like this, like we were talking about a little bit earlier. It helps. But it's having a mindset that you are open to things that are unknowing at the moment. Now, it sounds a bit deep, but it's not. You have an attitude of being open-minded to taking things that you don't know might happen yet, but when and if they do, you're ready to take on board that uncertainty. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Living that mindset, you are more open to find answers. The majority of people do not live in that mindset. So,
and do you know what? When you say that, though, the interesting point there, and very well made by, I might say as well, is what I try to do in everything now is always trying to put myself in the other person's shoes who I'm dealing with, right? Exactly. And when you go back to what we said earlier, what was it? 400 million people minimum, I would say, on this planet right now are truly evil people, which are more than capable of doing unimaginable things to other humans without having any sort of empathy whatsoever. No worries. They would think
No
They wouldn't think
conscience.
twice about doing seriously evil stuff, which we would struggle to do. Okay, so when you think about that rough number of people literally pulling so many strings all around the planet, have been doing for a very long time as well, not just since 2020. This goes back thousands of years. Okay, so when you think about that, and when you look at a human being, let's be honest about it, is so easily manipulated. Okay, when you look at the five sense reality, okay, so when you look at the five senses, you know, seeing, touching, tasting, smell, blah blah blah, when you look at that and how easily it is to manipulate people through those five different senses, it's no wonder that I would say probably, you know, majority of the population just literally haven't got a clue, because they have been put under very, very, very well done techniques through manipulation. And one of the greatest things, especially in the 21st century, was the invention of the television. Now, how many people, you know, spend hours a day, maybe in some cases, watching television, and, you know, subliminal programming in with that. I mean, years ago, we're talking back in the 80s now, you'd go to the cinema, and every, say, about once or twice, if it's a long film, you'd have like a break for about 20 minutes. And literally about 2 minutes before that break was to come up, they would quickly flash up on the screen a picture of a hot dog and a Coca-Cola or something for a split second, but the human eye can't even see it. But when you slow that film down and pause it, the image is there, and it has been going on since the 80s. So
although it's illegal, they're still doing it.
Yeah. Can you imagine this? How more advanced it's been since the 80s. I mean, that was 40 odd years ago. Can you imagine the level of technology to seriously, subconsciously manipulate the masses pretty much? And I'm very uncomfortable with the term, oh, you know, you're a sheep, whatever, because we were all sheep at some point. Lots of us have woken up and realized how it all works, why it is what it is, what we can foresee happening based on what is going on right now and what is being publicized. But yeah, you know, once upon a time, just before 2008, I was that guy who would go and buy Lacoste t-shirts and Adidas trainers and bloody Ben Sherman jeans and all the rest of it. And I was the guy going down a pub with his mates. And I was that guy doing a little few bets on the football in the pub on a Saturday afternoon. I was that guy going to the nightclub. I was that guy who had Sky Sports. I was that guy. And let me tell you this, the day that I woke up, all of that changed. All of that crap, which I call it now, is completely irrelevant. And like I said to someone today on a comment on one of the videos that I put up, was, you know, a lot of people sort of, I don't want to say moan or whine or whatever it is, but not everyone, but a lot of people out there, they say that they haven't got enough money and they're struggling. And I say, well, like I said, when I woke up in 2008, before then, I told you what I was into, and all of that stuff adds up. And when you take away, like, not going to the pub all day Saturday, not going nightclubbing on a Saturday night and going to the pubs, etc., not going down to the high street on a Saturday morning, spending a fortune on clothes, not going to get tattoos, not paying 80, 100, 150 pound a month just to watch football on Sky Sports or wherever it is, not paying all of that money for Netflix to watch all of this stuff, okay, not going to IKEA and buying all of this furniture, which the TV tells you via soap operas is the stuff that you should be having in your home every year or 2 years, not spending all of that time, but not so much that money, okay, all of that money and time is a lot. So when I stopped all of that, all of a sudden I had loads of money and loads of time. And I think a lot of people don't really see it yet until they wake up for themselves, because they're thinking, oh, I can't afford to go out and get a torch or whatever. I can't afford it. But yet, you know, every 6 months they're spending £1,000 on a pub. Yeah. And you think, well, I don't. Yeah. That's why I've got the money, so I can go out and get stuff. You see what I'm saying? Because you know, we probably get it a lot because, you know, we've been prepping for a long time, and prepping's not all about buying kit and equipment, as you pointed out earlier, and that's absolutely right. The most important thing of prepping is up there, and that doesn't cost anything, but you need to break free from spending all of that time and money But when you look at it, you know, is it really important that your wardrobe is like 5,000 quid for designer clothes? It's just clothes at the end of the day, okay? Is it really important that you spent, I don't know, £4,000 a year, whatever it was, watching Sky Sports and etc.? I mean, really? I mean, think of all that time you're going to get yourself in the evening reading books, researching into things, looking on how immediately you can safeguard yourself and your family with preps, etc. So like I'm saying, you're buying yourself time and money by turning your back on the system, because the system wants you to spend all of your time looking at that 60-inch black rectangle in the corner of your room for 6, 7, 8 hours every single evening, okay, and paying for the privilege. TV licenses, Sky Sports, Netflix. I mean, you're paying and you're giving your time. And what are you doing? I mean, if you watch a lot of the stuff on television, so basically you sit there, you watch like the evening news, you watch a couple of soap operas, you watch a film or a documentary or whatever it is, you're not actually learning much. And I'll tell you what's really interesting, to look at people's faces when they're watching telly. They're like that. They literally look like zombies, and it's true. I mean, you can Google it or whatever search engine you've got, look at say people's faces while watching TV or the movies, and it's that certain frequency which that TV and cinema screen is operating on, where it literally puts you in a almost like a hypnotic state. You look at people that go to the cinema, they're sitting there for 2 or 3 hours just eating a whole frigging great big bucket.
Mate, you know what you saying about the entertainment value? Just two things. You know, when you were saying about the subliminal things, they still do it, although they're not allowed to. But it was Wessler's hot dogs at the ABC cinema. I used to go down Wembley High Street.
Every single cinema across the UK and Odeon, wasn't it? Yeah.
But when they disallowed it, and I think I was my early teenage years going to the cinema, what they did during the adverts before because it was the B film, wasn't it? And then the main event, rather than just going in, buy your 10 quid, 15 quid box of popcorn about that big and watching a film. And that's it, hour and a half, 2 hours, you're in and out. Then it was a big event, the Picture Palace. What they did, they changed it to verbally. And I'll always remember it. As soon as you went about the subliminal things with adverts, where like, ding, this came up, was the advert used to be blah, 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 Pearl and Dean. The adverts. And then it'll be of a local restaurant, which was the only Chinese restaurant up the road in the whole of the area where we live.
I remember they used to do it, didn't they? Actual advert.
To Kiora Orange, and then it Wessler's hot dogs, and there'd be either a seductive woman going to take a bite out of the hot dog, and then the husband and the kids going, yeah, great. So there was all something subliminal going on there. But then it would finish, an hour from now, you'll wish you had one. So you got stuffed, you already had an ice cream before you even went in the cinema, and then you're thinking, oh yeah, I've had that before. Got a bit. So quickly you think, yeah, I better have a Wessler's hot dog, even though I'm not hungry, because an hour from now.
Look at the queues of all the people going to get a hot dog in the intermission.
And you take entertainment again, which is wanting to witness a created scenario is in our genes. It goes back to centuries of tribal storytelling, either telling philosophical stories to develop one's character, or continuing the legends of the lifestyle of the tribes, which goes back hundreds and thousands of years. And the Greeks, when you study Greek theatre, it's part of a process, tragedies and comedies. It's part of a process that people, why would you want to, and again, this isn't brainwashing, making people, why is it that one wants to watch something and go through an experience which is not real, but is theatrical and fictional, but the person likes the experience of following that entertainment? That's quite a natural thing in the human psyche. It's genetically programmed into us. Just like children growing up, they play, fight, they do things, so then it replicates being able to handle it in adulthood and future life. That's what the playing principle is about. So then you replicate it, and then you're ready for it. Because if you don't go through an experience when you're younger and all of a sudden it happens, it's like, oh, blink, what do I do? What's all that about?
It's so almost like muscle memory at the gym, isn't it?
Yeah. And also the mind memory, the brain synapses, where you've got different levels, the 4 different levels, alpha, beta, theta, delta. which function in different ways depending on the emotional or the practical experience. So they complement, so your body and mind can function in different scenarios, whether being creative, whether fight or flight, that sort of thing. So what's happened is that we're living in an entertainment society where now the natural thing of the human species wanting to experience experiences in a fictional scenario. So then that can sometimes be enlightening and very, not educational, but character developing, because you've been through it, not yourself, but like watching a war film, watching Saving Private Ryan. And what could be worse than people getting blown up and shot? But it's the process of coming out of that experience and going, wow, that was something else. I've got something from it, which has made me open my mind a bit, either from feeling sad or, do you know what I mean? So, but what's happened now, the whole thing has got corrupted, where now it's become, we're living in this new age of wait till artificial intelligence. What's his name? What's it? Peterson, the Canadian guy, psychoanalyst. He said, I watched a podcast of his, and I watched it a couple of times just to get the gist. And he's talking about pornography, and he said AI is now being produced in a way where you won't have to go on to people that do pornography. So I've heard, not that I've witnessed it, but actually either on porn websites, videos, all that sort of thing, is now being AI induced, whereby you can select your most extreme fetish and you can program it into the AI. And those,
oh my God, what a time for you to cut off. You've frozen and gone completely quiet. Well, whilst Pete's trying to figure out his internet connection there, as Pete was saying that, my immediate thought was Quagmire with the big strong right arm. If any of you guys watch Family Guy, oh my days. So we'll wait for Pete, unfortunately, to get his connection sorted out, and I'm pretty sure I'll see him being somewhat animated down in there. And do you know what? I just remembered. I done a video today about them torches on Olight. Okay, just so happens. Wow, you there?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Yeah, cool.
My God,
the powers that be
don't get censored.
That's just what I thought. The powers that be don't like us talking about what we're talking about. So
are there algorithms built into words that we bring up, and then
keywords? Exactly. I mean, we're going to have to literally talk in tongues. But I'll tell you what, just in case if it happens again, we'll give the AI a bit of a break. So what I thought I'd do is I would just remind people, because not everyone's seen the videos I've done today. If I can put it up there. Ooh, see that little torch there? I don't know how clear it's coming in. But that one is by Olight. It's the latest one. And that is currently up to 48% off. Okay. But not only that, if you watch the video, and the link is below this video, if you click on that link, you got a chance to win these two cool EDC torches as well. Now these are waterproof, shockproof, dustproof. You've only got to put a tiny little AAA battery in there. It lasts for donkeys. Okay, so being in it to win it, as it were. So we thought we'd talk about some of the Olight stuff, and all of the things that you're going to need to know are linked below this video. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to give the AI a chance to sort of go and play with someone else. So we're talking about pretty much, I'd say, how this live stream has evolved, just the mindset. Now, do you know what? I had so many people reaching out to me, and I kept up with these people to check up with them to see how they were doing. Because there was one of them, do you remember at the Prepper Meet years ago? Her name was called City Bee. And there was the woman, she turned up in that little van, and she always gave me a cigar at the Prepper Meet, bless her. Well, she used to live, I think she still does, right in the middle of London in like a little one-bedroom flat or something like that. And, you know, I think she was one of the people who took it seriously and just done as they were told, and just literally stayed in for nearly 2 years. Okay, absolutely terrible what some humans will allow themselves to become controlled in that way. Now, I always find myself spending a lot of time, checking up on her amongst loads of others. And indeed, in return, lots of people were saying, I'm not doing too well. I haven't really been out since lockdown and blah, blah, blah. And, I miss, because the thing is, I didn't take it seriously. Like I said, I probably believed, when the issue happened in 2020, I mean, look, most of you guys know my mum died on the 9th of March in 2020. And I think it was about the 23rd of March and all that. I think the lockdown started and all of this sort of fiasco unfolded. Now, it was probably around that time which I woke up to what was going on. I put 2 and 2 together, and it was mainly my partner. She was really on it. And what she'd done, how it worked, started with me. I went from, bloody hell, this is a serious pandemic. This is a nightmare. Oh my God. And it's so weird because I remember doing a lot of research going back to 2019, about October, November time, 2019. Now, some of you guys remember from my earlier videos, I used to do, and I still do, it's my immune system booster drink, which I have practically every single day, all the way through winter time, which these idiots have dubbed it flu season, but it's winter time. Okay. So when it gets cold, people get coughs and colds and they spread it around, and lots of people get the flu and the cold and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, right, I'll go back to doing this drink. But before I did, something told me, again, like you pointed out, intuition, that I really spent, I think it was about 3 weeks solid in October 2019, researching, what was it? The Spanish flu. Okay, so we're going back to a long time ago when all of this epidemic sort of stuff was going out. I was looking at seminars, 2-hour-long videos about all of these experts about what they used to wear masks and stuff in World War II. They come back and etc. etc. So I was really heavily researching into that, and something was telling me, so I don't know. And I remember finding a post, and I copied it and I reposted it on my Instagram account, which I've now deleted. Wish I didn't now. But on this post, it said something like every 20 years past the turn of a century, there's always big disasters or population changing events, especially regarding to plagues and flus and influenzas and stuff like this. And I remember posting it. I think it was November 2019, 2020, epidemic, and had about 3 or 4 different years of ended in 20 past it. All of these millions died, right through the centuries. And I said, well, what are the odds? I wonder if something's going to happen in 2020. And I remember a lot of people laughing at it. And guess what? 2020 happened, and all of this, oh my God, no one's ever really seen this in our lifetimes, really. The extent of the manipulation. And like I said, it keeps going back to that 400 million people pulling the strings. Once you've got all of that money, that expertise, you've bought and paid people off to be compartmentalized and do just doing my job, sir, sort of thing, like you said earlier. Put all of that in context, and you can see how it's all changed. But going back to it, my partner showed me a post on Instagram, and I remember it clearly. It was a church in Italy, and it was a video going around, and all of the floor was full up with coffins. And this was like a few weeks into, lockdown, as it were. I said, oh my God, that's terrible. Where's this? And she goes, oh, it's in Italy. But do you want to know something? I said, what's that? I said, that video was taken 2 or 3 years prior, somewhere else in the world. And the Italian mainstream media are using that footage from back then to say this is how bad the issue is over here in northern Italy. And I'm like, oh my God. And that literally just, and I started looking into other things, and oh my God, all of the pieces started making this great big jigsaw picture. And I'm like, whoa. So there's me when it started, cleaning all of my food and putting it away with gloves on. And now I'm like, whoa. So that was just me. But like I'm saying,
I mean, as preppers, mate, or survivalists, you're going to take on board an unknown quantity, but still have the open mind to question it. And I started to question it when a guy called Mike Yeadon, which I came across in July 2020. I won't go into the synopsis of it, but you just got to Google him. And if it hasn't been taken down, you see all the things he's exposed, that name some people might recognize. And also I went on to the Office of National Statistics. They were saying certain amounts, especially, you know, bereavements, deaths, etc. So that means if you've got, imagine this hand is the normal yearly amount of people that will die from anything, car crashes, accidents, illnesses, cancer, whatever. And then all of a sudden we have something that kicked in the early part of 2020, and everyone's made to think, wow, that means that the mortality rate is going up. And then that means you add on extra amount of people that are losing their lives, because that's what's being cultivated through the media and through the information officially. But then when you go and look at the numbers of that same time, it's the same amount of people. So I'll leave it at that. But I think the majority of people, especially yourself, will understand the point there where the maths didn't add up. So that made me start to question it. Not that I was insensitive to people having the side effects of the infection and it causing problems, but then also, if you have a dilemma, a medical situation which is not publicized, but still thousands of people are sadly losing their lives or being incapacitated, like pneumonia during the winter flu period, which every year happens. Now, if you highlighted that and publicized it and had people on podiums talking about it, you'd be going, wow, blimey, it must be getting worse. No, it isn't actually. Not taking away the validity of people that have actually lost their lives. I've lost 3 people to the infection that was supposedly the cause of it, but they had underlying health factors. So
yes,
I'm sort of going on a tangent a little bit.
I know what you're saying though. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to look at things. It's not being paranoid. When you get used to it, it's just a natural thing to do, to be inquisitive, to want to think for yourself, to have that sense of independence. But I will say something at this point, which goes back to those 400 million people that we're sort of relating to, and knowing that 3 in 100 are going to be sociopathic and be very inhumane and what have you. And they're the ones that normally get into the points of power and then manipulate the situation for their own purposes. You've got that principle, which has always been through every single culture. But now we're living in a modern version whereby one's immunity, I believe it was the end of October 2020, where for at least 100 years in the medical profession, it's known that our immunity is actually genetically produced by naturally in our body. And that had been the synopsis since modern medicine, from the late 1800s to the 1900s, then to where we are now. So at least 100 years. Overnight, the latter part of, I believe it was 2020, might have been 2021, so much information I've got, but all you need to know is that the World Health Organization changed information saying that human biology immunity is controlled and reliant on vaccination, and the wording had been changed. So I was suspicious of that and thinking, well, it might assist. I know I've had antibiotics and it saved my life. I will take certain medication if I needed to, but I'll try and be on a natural, healthy process, which again is an important thing. Everyone's gone on about the past few years, and it's enlightened people as well, we know, to think maybe there's something in this preparedness, survival attitude and approach. Was based on people's health.
High mortality reality.
You are, the more vulnerable you are to any medical situation. So surely a primal thing, mind, body, health and well-being. You don't have to go to a gym every single night. You don't have to work out like some blinking elite athlete. It's just preserving your own mental health and especially physical health, so you're more stronger to fight off any infections. Then you don't have to get, oh, where can I get some antibiotics? Oh, you can use this fish stuff. Oh, I'll get and then actually have a lethargic lifestyle and wonder why you're susceptible to certain illnesses. Do you know what I mean? So to me, a basic principle is, another first thing is maintain your own health in one way, shape or form. So then you are less vulnerable to any illness, just common flu or having a cold. I haven't had anything for blinking out, I'd say about 3 years, because I upped the ante with my own internal health, because what had happened, I thought, I don't want that to get me. And then I found that in general, my health, and I'm getting older, you know how old I am, and I'm getting more in the gym, and I just love getting in the gym and doing a boxing workout, and I just can't get enough of it. It contributes to my health, but I've always been like that since I was younger. I've always had to channel myself physically. So I know that's contributing for me to be healthier, so that at least within the prepping survival lifestyle, I'm actually maintaining the thing that's most important. Because if you're in a situation where you have nothing and everything is taken away, your preps, your kit, you've got your knowledge, but if you don't have the mindset and some sort of physicality, you're stuffed. So if you're in an extreme situation of having nothing and having to go into survival mode, if you haven't got it within the maintenance of the body and your frame of mind, that's it. It's over. Game over.
It's that mind, isn't it?
Roof over our head, got all our bits. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, when I do the prep and survival courses, I always say to the guys, I said, it doesn't matter about all of the kit. The kit is just luxury. It's that up there. Like you just said, just imagine you had your bag with all of your bits and bobs in it and clothing, and you've just got clothes on, nothing in your pockets. Just imagine something happened to that bag and you've literally got nothing. No knife, no ferro rod, nothing. What are you going to do? And it's that will to literally dig deep. And I mean, it's always going to happen, right? Now, people laugh when I say this, but it's always going to happen when it's going to be cold, wet, windy, dark. It's always going to be when you're hungry. It's always going to be that week where you've put your back out or whatever it is. That's when people are going to be tested individually and challenged to see, are they worthy of surviving? And it's literally that mindset. You always say, do you know what? I'm just going to curl up under this tree in his fetal position and gradually freeze to death. No. I mean, I always tell the story of this guy who was out in Siberia, okay? I forget his name. Either Molokov or something like that. But he was in Siberia on a train, and he had, it's questionable whether he had flip-flops on or trainers. It's still very difficult to know the truth. But anyway, he's on this train, okay? He's just say he's got trainers on, tracksuit bottoms, and a t-shirt. Right, he goes to the back of the train. He goes out, he opens the door, he has a little smoke, etc. And he goes to throw it outside. He goes out the wrong door and he gets off the train and falls off of the train. The train's not going very fast, but it's moving. Guess what? It's -40. It's snow everywhere. All of a sudden, this guy is stood there on a railway line in the middle of Siberia, -40 with snow everywhere. The train just disappearing 40, 50 miles an hour, wherever it was going. And like he had that decision to make. Oh, I'm screwed. No, do you know what he done? He ran and he ran and he ran and he ran and he ran. He kept running off. I can't remember. I think it was 3 kilometers or something like that. Luckily for him, there was an outpost train station there with one guard on duty who just so happened to come outside and have a smoke and see this guy going like this. And he got him into the waiting room, made him a cup of tea, warmed him up slowly, and he survived. But like I say to the students, I said, the most important thing about survival, secondary to the mind, is do whatever you have to do to maintain your core body temperature. And that is what he thought he had to do. And what you say, the most economical way to warm up is to move. It doesn't matter about the kit. I mean, this guy had practically no clothes on, right? And he's on flip-flops or slippers or something like that, that he run in the snow with all of this. I mean, imagine how hard that was. Bare arms, -40. Probably got windshield chucked in as well. But yeah, that will to survive, that brain to know that if I don't move, I'm going to get cold and I'm going to die. So we just ran after the train. The train disappeared, but he made it. And I think that's a good story to pass on to people. And I do that when I do the courses. And a lot of it is to do with the mind, mate. I mean, just say for argument's sake, the guy was morbidly obese and he had a low self-esteem or low willpower. I think we would have seen a different outcome possibly there, you know?
Yeah. I think, how your mind-body connects as well, which is something I've always been into since I can remember, which is all part of health, well-being, and right from the beginning, the questions you asked, my line of work and what I've been involved with, and it's a lifestyle as well, is when I've, done workshops and do an experiment to let them then, I understand where you're going with this. And now I can take on the perspective of the rest of this workshop or the seminar, is that you get someone to sit down and you get them just to think, this is just in a brief nutshell, like, you're carrying a rucksack, it's like 20 kilos, twice the weight that you're expecting. And all of a sudden you've got to go up this hill. It's the only way home. There's no other way that you can go back. So you've got to go up this hill and you're getting more knackered. You didn't eat your breakfast in the morning. You're feeling more strained. And they're just sitting down doing nothing, but they're going through this process, remembering something similar but based on what I'm verbally describing. Till the end of it, they're going, geez, I want to give up. Then you say, okay, open your eyes and now stand up. And I'll do that. The majority of people go, right. They didn't experience it. That didn't happen, but they went through it in their mind and the body picked that up. Then you go through, but you don't tell them what this test is about. Then you go, okay, we're just going to go just something else before we go into the rest. So you get them off the scent thinking, oh, maybe there's a trick in it. You just go, right, okay. So again, I'm being subliminal, but it's purposeful for this process. Go, okay, sit down. We're just going to do the next thing. Right, well, I want you to imagine the opposite. You're on holiday, you're with your family or your favorite person or your best mates. Think of where you've actually been in the past, that feeling it gave you. And then you sort of got up and you went water skiing, you went rock climbing, you had a really good time, you upped the ante, you just felt really buzzing and high. Okay, open your eyes and I want you to stand up. That proves for them that there's such a connection between your state of mind and how it neurologically affects the body. For the two opposites of not actually experiencing it, but just going through the imagination, your body then, what I call, is like an antenna. It picks that up.
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
is neurologically proved as well, which goes back to what you were saying about this Russian guy.
Yeah.
And then having to do the
Valery Malikov, that's it.
Right. And
Valery Malikov, yeah.
That's a real example. And then what you say in your courses is that when you think in a constructive, practical survival mode, if you want to refer to that as well, your body will pick it up and be more receptive to take on board what it is you've got to do, which is an actual realistic situation of how the mind-body connection works, where if you can just switch it on to go, I've got to do something about this, the body's going, well, come on in. Just like, I've been carrying this rucksack, now I want you to stand up. Oh, right, I've got to get up off the chair because he's telling us to. And then the next one, you're more positive, you're more vibrant, then you get up off it. You've still gone through the same physical actions of just sitting there. Yeah. Two different thought processes that your body picked up. And what that does, what I call embodiment, it embodies your thinking process. So again, subliminally and subconsciously, if you're always not paranoid, people that don't understand this principle will think, oh, it's being paranoid, you're just thinking too much. No, it's actually just being in tune with thinking outside the box and being receptive to life in general and things that you feel, I don't think that's quite right. That when you do have to do something, it's exactly the same identical process. You're thinking, oh, right, okay, I need to do, and the body's going, okay, we'll go with you. Which then takes us back to the more physical you can maintain, just keeping the aging process at bay, keeping physical maintenance within reason, trying to keep a little bit healthy by being active. When you have to go into action, you're ready because the body's been responsive because you've practiced that.
How true is that? Yeah.
And there's so much that what looks on the surface of it of just being, oh, well, it's just a little idiosyncrasy of what people might do. There's so much to be said. And when you actually experience it and then maybe go through something where you thought, bloody hell, it's the first time I actually use that type of perspective and approach and it gets you through the shit, then you're more, right, now I've actually sown the seed to be more adaptable, to have that attitude, considering we've been talking about mindset tonight. Do you know what I mean? Which a lot of people find, oh
my God, he's been disconnected. Oh, what happened there? They need to connect. If you can see me, Pete, or hear me, mate, you've been disconnected. Powers that be don't like you gassing, mate. So while Pete is trying to figure out his connection, I just thought I'd just say, based on my experience, going back to when I was in the military, is up to all of us as individuals to maintain our fitness in our own time. Now, what I had to do, or what I gave myself to do, was to run 3 single. Here we are. He's back. You right there, mate?
Different camera, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
I was prepared. I think you've got an echo coming back. USB. This camera. Right.
Oh, mate, it's all right. It's all good. We can see you and hear you loud and clear. Like you're saying, while you're getting sorted out there, I was just telling the guys the experiences which I found myself in, which I had to overcome. I had no choice. Back in the military, it's down to all of us as individuals to maintain our own fitness in our own time. Now, the goal I gave myself was to run 3 miles every single night. And I've pretty much done that for the 3 years that I've served, okay? Now, let me tell you this: when I first started it, the first week, I'll never forget it. It was so hard. I used to hate running. Okay, I was what, 6 foot, 9.5 stone, streak of pea, and it was very difficult to run, you know, because I just never run before. So the way I've done it is, you know, the first week, as I said, when I used to get really, really sort of out of breath, wanted to spit all the time, my heart was thumping like crazy. Because I lived in an urban environment, what I'd focus on was if I just make it to that next lamppost, and as soon as I got near to that lamppost, I had a decision to make. Right, I either stop and have a breather, or I just keep trying. So I made myself keep trying, and I just said, just get to the next lamppost, then you can definitely have a break. And the same thing, I got about 5 feet next, coming up to that lamppost. No, just make it to the next one. And I literally done that all of the 3 miles and made it all the way back to my house, and like collapsed in a heap. And then as it went on over the 3 years, it got easier and easier and easier. I run faster and faster and faster. And it just goes to show, and the same, like you said about putting on a 20-kilo ruck and going up a hill. When I used to do lots of stuff on the military training area at Salisbury Plain, there was me, Paul, who was in the commandos. There was Shovel Recce, and there was Viking Mitch, and we'd go off and do our little military training stuff, brushing up on patrol skills, etc. Now, yeah, we all had like 20, 25, maybe 30-kilo packs on. So we literally come from nothing, just a bog standard life or routine, and we find ourselves in the middle of nowhere with inclines. And I'll never forget it. We went on this huge big patrol right in September. It was a hot summer's day. We were pouring lots of water, etc. And I got to this point where I'll tell you what, this incline was pretty much 45 degrees. And I looked at it, I was thinking, oh God. And I sort of stopped, give myself like 5 seconds before I went up there. And I've done about 2 or 3 steps, and I can feel my legs, all of them, all of my legs, all parts of it, about to cramp up. And I knew if I stopped, I'd be in trouble for about 20 minutes. So I thought, nah. And do you know what? It's so weird, like you said, the power of mind. At that moment, we was all tired. We pushed miles and miles and miles on that day, and we had loads more to go. We got to the bottom of this mountain stroke hill, and I just literally said to myself, don't be a dickhead, just get up there. And I just practically jogged up there, and I made it to the top, and I thought, wow, there I was right at the bottom thinking, I just want to sit down, have a smoke or whatever it is, have a rest. I thought, no. And you just literally just turn yourself off and don't, just get up there. Just walk, it's easy. And I did, and I walked purposely faster than I normally would, up an incline, leaning forward, no problem at all. And if I can do that, pretty much anyone can do the same if they're in a situation where they think they can give up. Because let me tell you this, guys, your mind is way more powerful than you think it is. And whatever you believe in, whatever you choose to believe in, you can pretty much do anything. Am I right,
yeah.
Pete?
Yeah, I mean, is my voice echoing?
Yeah, you sound a bit like audio stuttery, like over
modulated. Hold on.
Well, how's everybody going anyway? Do you know what? I've not really had a chance to look at the comments. I can see him.
I'll add him now. Oh, here we go.
I can hear, mate.
Okay, there might be a slight echo. Let me just...
No, there's no echo from my end. You sound good to me.
Right. Am I echoing?
No, fine.
Oh, right. It's just me. I can hear my echo. It's just me. I've got to listen to my voice twice.
Well, what you want to do is just turn your volume off. Or, no, you won't be able to hear me then, will you?
Oh, yeah. Right. As I'm talking now, there's no echo.
That's fine, mate. It sounds good.
As long as I've got to deal with it and your listeners haven't, that's fine. What I'll do is I might just speak a little bit slower. But boring, I've got to listen to my voice twice now because I'm echoing. But yeah, you know that I did when I did
I just get that, £1.09 for 5 litres of Welsh spring water.
Blinking hell.
Just saying that to Colin, mate. Yeah, because you know what the water's like up here. It's probably okay, but it's got that that sulphur, because some of you guys may or might not know, but a lot of Wales is all sulphur under the ground, and We got a borehole, and sometimes you run the tap, it's like eggy farts. I don't fancy drinking it, so we just have a bottle of water for now. But
you
anyway.
talk about the mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I got back from Mirror Peak. Well, I did it in November, and it was 10 days, 6 to 8 hours a day trekking into altitude. Hardest thing I've ever done. But you talk about the mindset again. That I could go into it more elaborate, but I won't because obviously there's not enough time. But
that's listen, I've got to stop you there. That's the second hardest thing you've got to do. The first hardest thing you have to do is read a lot of the comments under the videos for people.
Yeah. Sure. No worries, mate. Yeah, do interject. But I'll just finish on my point of like saying that there's a couple of times I was really going to give up, but I went to literally beyond physical and mental when I eventually summited. But 2 hours before summiting, I was nearly going to give up because I was thinking, what am I doing? At altitude, you've got your brain's functioning differently because of lack of oxygen. We didn't have oxygen because you don't when you're doing that particular trail. But then it was the last 2 hours, were the longest 2 hours of my life. But the mindset was I just somehow got into some reserve. I don't remember the majority of getting to that last bit of the summit, except for the last 15 minutes, which I do remember. But I know what supplemented that was the previous training, the mindset, the visualization, but also taking myself to extremes physically, so that when I did do that, mind body's more receptive, albeit I've never experienced that intensity before. I had more potential to do it. So that really is a metaphor for everything, really. Just getting by day to day, having your mental health, just trying to make sure that you have a reasonable, balanced lifestyle. It's just maintaining the mind and body, and then everything can come from that, you know?
Absolutely, mate. I mean, like I say, I do like to use the term muscle memory because, you know, I remember way years ago, I used to be a gym freak, used to go to all the time. And I didn't have like a bulky physique, but for a long period of time, I used to get my hand and smack it. And I was like a statue. You know, you really do tone that muscle and you are lean and you can move fast and everything else. And it's fantastic. And going through that process when I was a younger man, as it were, I decided to sort of fade it away, and you know, other things happened, and it wasn't even on the radar. I didn't go to the gym for years. In 2006, when I started this permanent job, my boss, he was pretty much like an amateur semi-professional bodybuilding champion. He'd done like Europe, Universe, he's done UK, he's won them all. Amazing guy, really, and he's got to be 70 odd now. And he was stepping into the ring, you know, doing proper boxing fights at 60 odd years old, right? An incredible guy. And it was him who inspired me to go back to the gym back in 2006. And it was really weird because when I first started going, and I thought, bloody hell, and you know what it's like when you've had a break. The next day, you just ache all over. Oh my God. So you give yourself a day's rest. Then the following day, go in there and smash it out again. And it didn't take long. It probably took about 10 days, you know, with the breaks included, to literally regain that muscle memory. And of course, when you're bench pressing, you're doing upright rows, all of this sort of stuff, it was a lot easier than someone going to the gym for the first time in their life to get that. So the body remembers that stuff. And like
there's an enzyme.
And the mind as well.
You've been through that extreme process. You reduce it and maybe go back to not exert it, but it stays there. But to produce it, to stay in the muscle fibers and the neurons, or the neuron response, if you want to think of it like that, you have to go through that extreme process for it then to get stored as the muscle memory. So that's why you would have progressed. And it's a really interesting subject, because when you get to know your body, it makes you inquisitive to then encourage people to be motivated to think, I want to get in connection with this and maintain it, you know. And you've given a really good example.
And I say, once people sort of understand this, I mean, most of us, you know, some of us, I guess, will hit the gym and try all of that stuff. And it was really weird because I was just starting to get a shape, if you know what I mean. And it was then where the ego, I allowed to get carried away, and I turned into, dare I say it, Billy Big Bollocks. So there I was laying down with all of the weights on the plates all stacked up, full max. I think it was 200 pounds or wherever it was. And he was just literally just lay down and just pushed the whole lot up. I go, yeah, this is easy like this. And I got off of that. I went straight onto the bench, and my mate, the boss, I think he sort of loaded up the plates a little bit more than he thought I could handle because he wanted to see if I can do it. And I think I'd done 3 proper pushes, and the last one I just couldn't do it. He was spotting and he put it back. And ever since then, both my shoulders went, and I've had an operation on it. It's never been the same since.
Right.
And it was such a shame because I was just getting that shape back after all of them years absent, and then that happened. So that's another important thing to do. If guys are you watching out there, you're considering, like some of us are, because it's always the same in it. When you've seen it, you must know what I'm talking about. Once Christmas is done, everyone's got the gut, the boobs, and they want it shifted because they want to strut around the beach like bloody Donkey Kong, and they need to get to the gym. They go there. Oh my God, it's a nightmare. They do it for about a month or 2 and then they jack it in. But, if you've got that determination to keep going, don't fall into the trap, which I fell into, thinking, I'm getting really strong, really fit. I'm starting to get shape. I can really go above your graduational raise in weights and reps and stuff. You take that too far, and it's so easy to get an injury. And trust me, that'll put you straight back or not at all. So it's really important not to let that ego thing say, I could bloody lift all that. Doesn't matter what pressures with your mate or so-called mates or other people in the gym or some girl you're trying to impress or whatever it is. Don't fall into that trap, because you do, you get screwed. Yeah, it's true.
If you, as with a lot of things, if people ask themselves the question, why am I doing this? Why? What is the reason? But go, why? Going in the gym, like ego, trying to look the part, but it's all visual rather than, but could you put a rucksack on and go for a 20 mile tab or what have you? If you think, why am I doing this? The answers will come, and that goes for anything. But talking about physical abilities, just general health, maintaining the ability of the body and also mental health. And you think, but it takes this. Why would I want to do it? Because it's a good idea, and it will keep me healthy, and it will maintain having some sort of physical ability, longevity of life, less chance of being vulnerable to illness, infection. You know what I mean?
You're limiting the chance of all of those horrible diseases later on in life, aren't you, as well? And like I've always said as well, now, some people ask me advice about this, even though I'm not really qualified, but I can only give the advice based on what I've experienced personally. Is I'm not a big fan of the real high impact stuff. I would rather jog rather than run. I would rather do gentle stuff, especially in the gym. I'd do stuff like slowly, when you're doing like curls or something. Right? It's not a race, and I think the slower that you do it, you're stretching them fibers slowly, and you're doing it under full control rather than you're halfway back up and then jerk it or whatever it is. If I always rather do stuff which has low or less risk impact on certain joints, because I've seen it before where people, especially when they're teenagers and they spend a career being an athlete, you look at them sometimes when they're in their 60s or 70s, they got bad knees, they got bad hips, etc., because they put so much force and strain on those joints. Maybe doing certain exercises or routines incorrectly, which over time would affect certain muscle groups and put that into a detrimental cause later on in life, where they think, oh my God, I've got arthritis in my knees or whatever it is. And it could be possibly contributed to how they've actually treated their body.
Well, it will take you back. It will take you back to the question, why? Why am I training? Because I want to look the part. Ego. Okay, then you have to suffer the consequences that what that can create and cause sometimes. Why am I doing it? Performance related, sports related exercise. A golfer, to keep limbered and mobile, would do a different training routine, if at all, to a boxer, a sprint runner, a long distance runner, a high jumper, a shot putter. Everything is relevant and specific for the activity. So in the business, we call it sports related activity, but I call it activity related. So what is the activity that you're going to do? Why am I doing this physical action? Why am I doing this exercise? To help with rock climbing. Then you do things that are within the replication movements, as I've started to now start doing, of rock climbing, of climbing verticals, of climbing angles, rather than exercise per se. Yeah, of doing bicep curls, chest press, squats, pec flies, tricep extension. Great. It does maintain. Why am I doing it? Because I just want to maintain the muscle groups. But then be careful, because you could have future injuries. So you look into that to make sure that that doesn't happen. But you just give an example, it does. People that have beasted it a little bit. Why are you doing it? So why am I training? Keep the aging process at bay. I love it. I've got back into boxing training 2 years ago because I couldn't go up Mirror Peak when I wanted to because of the restrictions we had. So I had to channel that suppressed energy. So I went back with my mate and was doing boxing training. So yeah, everything is activity specific, if that makes sense. So you ask the question, why am I working out? Then you'll find the answer, and then you work out appropriately, getting the right personal trainer to
that makes perfect sense to me of how the mind works. That's a healthy approach, rather than someone going, right, I want to get big shoulders, slim waist, big pecs, big guns. Why? Because I just want to pull the chicks. I thought, okay, great.
Well, yeah, I've got to go from doorways sideways.
But fundamentally, when you look at it, we're all a skeleton. We've got muscle and we've got tendons and etc. And we've got skin. So what we're doing is we're protecting our vital organs and stuff inside. And when you see some people, and it's no disrespect, some people allow themselves, for whatever reasons, whether it's medical or whatever, allow themselves to get, should we say, a really large size. So I've not seen any evidence of thin skeletons and big skeletons. They're all pretty much the same. So it's really, really, it's difficult. And I'll tell you one thing, and this is a mindset thing. This is about growing up as well. When I was a lot younger, and when you're teenagers and so hormones, you're not a real genuine functioning human being at that time because there's so much at play, right? So back at then, I would be like jogging because I had to in the military, and I would see a huge, great big guy just wobbling around, and I'd just think to myself, "Oh, you womble like that? What look at the state of you?" And now,
wobble.
But the thing is now, and it wasn't long after you progress through those teenage years, and I would say definitely since I woke up back in 2008, when I see people like that, I've got the utmost respect for anyone who's really out of shape, but they're doing something. And it doesn't matter if they're literally, it's a fast walk and they're red-faced and they're sweating her over. It doesn't matter. They're out doing it. Okay. And anyone who drives past and says, look at that. Oh, mate, you know what I mean? That's wrong. So it is a big mindset thing. And anyone who literally does something to improve their situation rather than just talking or thinking about it, they've got all of my respect, 100%.
Yeah,
I mean, you must see it with the clients as well. You must have all sorts.
And also as well, rather than it's a big challenge, little snippets. Think of where you go. What I one of my anecdotes when I finish some of the workshops I do, whether it's one-to-one or groups, is from now to a year later seems a really long time. But the moment we're in now and we look back 12 months, we think, geez, didn't that go quick? Get in that mindset and go, in a year's time, you're going to go, didn't that year go quick? So just go one step at a time, knowing what your conclusive goal and achievement you want to do. Just like taking the journey, going from John O'Groats to Land's End. You ain't going to go, you take it each stage, you take that journey, and then you can accomplish your aim. Yeah. It's exactly the same thing. And if you can get into that frame of mind as well, away from the quick fix, you ain't going to see results within the first 2-3 months properly. But when you've not done anything for a long time, muscle memory also involved with it, it takes about 3 months for the body to go, now it's not a conscious thought, it's the biochemistry of the body goes, in 2.5 to 3 months goes,
28 days,
we're going to keep doing this. We better now maintain the muscle tissue, get used to burning fat in an efficient way, because that's the mechanism that's been conditioned into the body. Then things become easier. So it's normally people want a quick fix. And also the mistake as well is getting on the scales. Try to defer from getting on the scales. It can help to a point, especially if you're under medical intervention. But go on your clothes size, because you can lose body fat, gain muscle tissue, which pound for pound is denser and smaller than adipose tissue or fat. And you think, shit, I ain't lost any weight. But all my trousers are feeling looser. You're replacing the body fat with muscle tissue. So that can sometimes be a little bit of a misdemeanor where people get on going, I haven't lost any weight. But someone that hasn't seen you for a while will go, blimey, you've got a bit of shape, and will think you've lost weight, but you're saying,
go by clothes, isn't it? It's a perfect example, mate. Yeah.
And obviously, the more muscle tissue you have as well makes you more metabolically active in a resting state. Approximately for every pound of lean muscle tissue your body has, it needs 50 calories a day to survive. So that means the food you're eating, don't overeat and have your junk food, but you can get away with a few naughty bits of food because your body's ticking over a higher metabolic rate, the more muscle tissue. So if you imagine someone everyone can relate to, Linford Christie.
He just reminded me of
really strong athlete. Yeah. He'd be able to supply calories without doing anything physical to keep his muscles the way they are. Because on average, a pound of muscle tissue burns 50 calories just in its resting state. So you become more metabolically active, which is a healthy thing. So then your body will utilize the food you eat and actually absorb it and burn it off as fuel rather than storing it. And another misdemeanor as well is carbohydrates. Too much carbohydrates. People think they're cutting out fat can actually make you insulin resistant. So then that means the sugars that your body doesn't burn off turn into fat. Very seldom, I know it sounds a bit of a contradiction in terms and it's a bit more of an in-depth subject, but people tend to think fat, the more fat you eat, the more that converts into fat in your body, when it doesn't actually necessarily.
Complex carbohydrates.
It's normally too much carbohydrate.
Yeah, you got complex carbohydrates and simple sugars, and they both work completely different than each other. But do you know what? As you were saying that, it just reminded me. Back in the day, this was in 2006. I remember going down the gym, and we'll get there at R5, waiting for it to open at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? So we get there, first in there, straight on, do some cardio, get all the blood going, and get the heart pumping and everything, get all warmed up, doing the stretching. Then it was time to hit the weights and stuff. And I remember doing the cardio stuff, or be on the rowing machine. Just before I sat down in there, I ate a banana. Now, I strictly remember that banana, right, was 110 calories. So I went in this rowing machine for 20 minutes. And when I looked up at the thing, the calorie counter, I burned off 110 calories. And I'm thinking, what the F am I doing? It's just mind, you know?
Yeah, I know. The thing is, with some of the readings, hang on a minute, let me just turn my volume down a bit. With some of they're just there as a protocol to give you a guidance. So you might not necessarily burn off exactly the 150 calories, but the banana you would have eaten, the calories you would have burned off would have been stored from previous food you consumed. Something like a banana, as probably a lot of people know, they're slow release carbohydrate. So I eat them a lot. I like bananas. But if I'm using it as part of my, or convenient, I didn't have enough time to eat, but if I eat too much now to supplement me going training, going to the gym, it's not practical. I'll get a blood rush to the gut to help digest the food, which then means I'll get a stitch because the blood is needed for the pumping muscles. Understanding that principle as well, you get to know strategically what food to eat at particular times, pre and post exercise. So something like a banana, brilliant bit of fuel food because it's slow release, just like oats are. That's why a lot of athletes will be eating porridge or oat cakes, homemade.
You know going back to bananas, right? I remember back in the day, I used to watch Wimbledon and stuff, and when it was on the telly, and I remember there was some of the guys were eating almost like green bananas because I can't remember which order. I think the green or the yellow was like slow release, but the black, the ones that were almost gone off, they were literally just instant sugar. Or it might be the other way around. I can't quite remember. Yeah. So that was really interesting.
It would have been the more right ones. Would have been more of that instant sugar compared to it being stored in the fibre of the banana, which is just about right compared to a fully dark skinned one. It would,
I think it was Tim Lemon or something.
Be a little bit more intrinsic to get straight in the body. Yeah,
really weird, mate. Yeah, back in the day. Well, right.
So we got everyone on the fitness regime now, have we?
Yeah, everyone's gone home, mate. There's only 2 people left.
Don't worry.
No, I'm joking. No, mate, well, I've not even had a chance to look. I've seen
if you've got time, let's go for it. I'll shut up. You do some questions. or
Yeah.
what you've got to give answers to.
Okay, if any of you guys have got any questions, put them in full capitals, and you know, between Pete and myself, we only got about 10 minutes left. So if you're quick, and we can pick out your question, mate, absolutely, we'll do our best to give you as straight as an answer as we could. So we're just going through there. Here we go. Remember this, Brian? Remember Brian at the prepper meet, the pagan guy with the drinking out the horns and all that jazz? Makes knives. There he is, right there. You can shut down your conscious mind, not your subconscious mind. Yeah, interesting. Do you know what? I follow this guy, Jason Brashears, who's got a channel called Archaics, and he's done a video, a really good one actually, a live stream within the last 7 days or so, and he calls it Mirror something. So if you go to his channel, you look for that title, Mirror something. It really goes into a deep dive of literally how you can manifest anything that you want. And it's nothing like those people who brought that book, The Secret or whatever it was. I've never read it myself, but
all that
it really
stuff.
does. Amazing, mate. Oh my God. And I'll tell you what, if anyone is a bit low, they want to advance somewhere in their life to achieve something or to get a goal and actually do it in real life, trust me, man, the information and tips on that is wow inspiring. I mean, I've pretty much mastered it myself, but some of you guys who just haven't got a clue of what to do, that's a really good live stream to watch. Archaics, really good channel to watch. So here we are. We got some questions coming in. We got this one from Sky Girl, because it's in capital letters. Tips for not drinking all the time to cope with the stress of the last 3 years. So basically, Sky Girl, she's stressed out because there's been a lot of BS since 2020. Wants to know if she can get around it without alcohol. Good question. I would say, for me,
why
hand over the
back to the why
outdoors.
Why, and this isn't personal to her, it's just a general concept. Why am I using alcohol? Which we can understand and appreciate why people fall back onto that through insecurities and stress. But personally, the person says,
that is
why am I
vodka,
drinking alcohol?
That's neat vodka. It's gorgeous.
Why am I drinking alcohol? To get rid of the stress. What would I normally do or be able to do to help with stress? And trying to refocus, which is another really important word as well, is to refocus on not so much what is the negative, where you open up what's called the reticular activating system mentally. It works visually, and I'll tell you how it works in a nutshell. You're thinking of buying a car. It's a red sports car. You think, oh, I'm going, and you look into it, so your focus is on that, and all of a sudden next week you go out and you're driving your mate's car and you think, everyone's got a red car. They haven't, but you've just opened up your concept of perspective and perception to take in more information. We can use that practically to think, what can I focus on to get away? Because this isn't a question now about alcohol. You can apply the same principle of thinking, why am I drinking the alcohol? It's to just sort of numb the feeling of feeling stressed and I can't handle things.
Yeah. It just
what
makes
things might you have done previously? Obviously weren't as extreme to feel low, but using that as an example to go, maybe I can reignite that to bring myself back onto a normal level. But to really assess it, you'd have to go to the person one-to-one and find out what is really personal for them. So what I'm saying there is just a blanket example of being open to thinking of something which has meaning to you, focusing on that, and then it helps to deplete the stress, if that makes sense and if that helps. But I couldn't go personally myself more in depth without knowing the person personally and then personalizing it to them, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, nice one, Pete. We got this one. This would be great for you, mate, if you want to answer this one. Should you reduce day mileage hiking when you get over 50?
Good question. Well, I'm well over 50.
73 on Tuesday.
Not really. Again, this would be personal to the individual. You've got any ailments? You've got any conditions? How have you hiked before? If you've maintained it and it's been a lifestyle that's not caused any health problems or injury issues, then you have a bigger potential to maybe, because the main thing is recuperation. The older we get, when we get over 40s and we're trying to keep this process at bay by being physically active, the recuperation level takes longer. So equating it on that basis, don't miss out on enjoying hiking. And if you're over 50, don't have, age is just a number to a point. But what might be appropriate for one over 50-year-old might not be relevant to another person. So again, it's quite personal and individual. I appreciate the question, and that is equate it to how you've always hiked, and then get an idea of how you would have to recuperate as we get older. But don't let it diminish your enthusiasm to do it. That's the main thing. Don't let it, oh, I'm over 50 now.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm 51 myself. You know, I'm 51. I'm 51 myself, and how I would day tripper, how I would say is I would keep up the distances that you're doing, but seriously do your best to make whatever you've got on your naked body as light as possible. Okay, so the older you get, the lighter that you go. You know, the days of being like over 50 and, you know, doing like 50 miles with like 20 kilos on your back, you know, that is exceptional. Okay. Yeah. So I would just say, if you're doing a hike of, say, 10 miles or whatever it is, okay, that's fine. Depending on the terrain, whether it's relatively flat or it's got some serious inclines, just go lighter. The problem I find with a lot of military boots, especially the cheaper ones, they're very heavy. And making sure that you can find the lightest clothing and footwear would really make a big difference. And, you know, if you've got like a 20 pound, 25 pounds British military Bergen, you know, the weight of that compared to an Osprey one, you know, the Osprey one would probably be about a quarter of the weight. Yes, it's expensive, but you don't have to buy brand new. You can always get second hand. So I would look into very lightweight kit and equipment. If you put off by
just looking at that sentence there, Daz, it says reduce day mileage. Not necessarily, but reduce the exertion level. Because your body will then function more aerobically than anaerobically, like going up a hill or going faster. So by reducing the intensity, you could probably, odds on, provided you've got no ailments, the fact that without reducing the mileage, keep the distance the same, but maybe take it just slightly longer. So then you feel you've got the ability to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, mate. I mean, I remember when I went up Penny Fan when we was all supposed to be going up there, and it turns out it was just me and V. We're the only ones who made it. And it was really weird because I thought personally it'd be a mega challenge for me, and it was. It really did challenge me, but I've done it. But I was so hoping that you was going to be there, Pete, because I knew that if I was with you, there would be less talking and a lot slower pace. The exact opposite happened. V, she would not stop talking, and she was practically jogging up there. And you know what it's like when you're walking and you're doing incline stuff. I mean, I had 56 pounds in my pack, not to mention all of the clothes and boots and camera equipment, etc. And it was a lot, because you know what it's like going at Penny Fan, right? And she was going at quite a fast pace because she had half of the weight, and she was a lot fitter than me. You know, it's fine. I don't mind accepting that. And yeah, she'd love to talk. And I'll tell you what, man, trying to talk and doing that at incline, you're just out of breath. So
you can do that as a breathing test as well. So talking, you're actually expelling the oxygen you need to keep you fueled. But one thing for me personally, without going in too much, when I did the 10 days to get to Mirror Peak, 6 to 8 hours a day, going into altitude, eventually ended up at 6,500 meters, all but 200 meters. So nearly 6.5 kilometers vertically up into the sky from sea level. At 66 years of age, I did that. But to enlighten on that question a bit more, I had to go at a slower pace than the rest of my group. So I eventually got a separate solo Sherpa to go with me, because I had to do that, because the route had changed and we went all over the place, hanging off trees, sheer drops because there'd been an earthquake and there'd been an avalanche. So we had to change this route. But point being, for me personally, I was still able to do something that I would have loved to have done 20 odd years ago. I still did it, mindset, body connection, but I reduced the exertion. And to be perfectly honest, if I'd have kept up with the rest of my group that had booked, there was only 5 of us to do the trek at the same time, I wouldn't have made it. So I had to reduce the exertion, go at a slower pace. So on average, per day, I was about an hour and a half to 2 hours behind the other 4 people. Served me fine, but I was.
But it's handy for you.
Pardon?
it's absolutely tailored for you. I mean, day tripper here. You know, I've got no idea what his possible injuries are. You know, his weight, his stamina. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, it's very difficult to answer a question like that. But all we can do is advice from what we've actually had. I mean, my advice, like I said before, and what Pete was saying on there. So I hope that's helped, mate. So we're going on to Aussie Anzac. Broke my lower back while serving, ex-mill guy. How can I keep my belly trim? So is
reduce calories and carbohydrates. That's the first thing without actually doing anything physically active because of your back.
Yeah. That's a tough one, mate, isn't it? Because, you know, personally, anything to do with belly trim, I would always recommend crunches and stuff like that. But obviously, if you busted your lower back, that's going to probably be a no-no, I would assume. But Pete would be a lot more qualified to say about that. Who else have we got? Right. Trying to find, there's not many questions, actually. Oh, yeah. Here we go. This one is a random one. This is from Sue Young Poo, or Pug, whatever that name is. Top 5 things you would take to improve your health.
Well, as in what? Consume?
I would take it from that. Take and I would
ingest.
Ingest. I would assume.
Not do. Yeah.
So I say cannabis, heroin, cocaine, magic mushrooms, and LSD. I think they will be amazing. No, I'm only joking. Of course, I just want to see Pete laugh while I watch him.
Yeah, I mean, how long's a bit of string? Initially, everything in moderation, really. But I would say supplements. But then find out what supplements you maybe are lacking, whether you've had medical advice, or you can use radiesthesia, where you actually hold in your hand. Now we're going off piste a little bit here, but technique I've used and it's helped me, and it's also helped clients. Your body radiates a certain energy, and it can pick up on a frequency by just getting a string with a weight on the end. You hold a certain vitamin or the idea of that particular item or product you're going to consume, and you decide the movement of the pendulum. And it's kinesthesia. You've probably heard of it. It's kinesiology.
I've heard of that.
And it's part of that process as well. And your body will tell you what you need. The body is not there to be stressed. It's evolved to be physically active. When you look at the wonderment of the skeletal frame and how it's all evolved so that it doesn't break, the spine's got its natural spinal curve. Internally as well, your body knows what things to take to improve your health. So basically vitamin supplements, and also a bio aspect for the gut as well. I would say one of the most important things is the health of the gut through those sort of green therapies, which I've started taking recently, which is a whole mixture. It tastes like ground up cow dung and freshly cut grass, you know.
Kefir as well.
I found it really helped my gut digestion and the way that my body digests the food, because I used to be susceptible to acid reflux, which now has gone. So yeah, it's sort of difficult to sort of answer that, but a general thing of vitamin supplements, make sure your digestion, you can take a supplement for that and keep hydrated, fresh water.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, no, actually spot on in gut health. There's loads of research, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, about gut health. Very, very important. Things I would recommend if you've got any issues in your stomach, fresh ginger is amazing. Okay, you don't have to like it. My ex-wife years ago, she used to hate the taste of it. So what I'd say was, you cut it up in the size of a small dice. You just put it in your mouth and you swallow it down with water, so you haven't got to actually crunch it all up. But get that ginger in your stomach. That is amazing, and that will really pay you dividends to go towards correcting your stomach. One thing I would definitely say, and this is on very, very latest lessons which I've been learning myself, right? And it's going to be hard for a lot of people to actually put this in practice. Don't buy any supermarket meat.
Yeah.
What's that noise? Is that your end?
Is it like a low howling?
Wow. That's wolf. Can you hear it?
Yeah. The wolves are at the door, mate.
Do you know what? It's weird because I've heard this out here before. wolves. No joke. And someone said, no, there's no wolves out there. But apparently there is rumours that have been going on for a few years of reintroducing him to some parts of Wales and Scotland. So wow, I can't wait to go out there. I've got a great big katana out there. I'm going to go out there for a walk in a minute. There's some chop suey. But anyway, going back to this, because we've got to wrap this up soon because it's getting late.
Yeah.
Gut health and stuff really important. But yeah, supermarket meat, don't buy it. Okay, especially chicken. If you get those cheap chicken breasts, honestly, I had a drawer full in my freezer, probably about 20, give or take, of these chicken breasts. They've been in there for about a year. So I thought, right, I'm going to go through them, clear the space, defrost my freezer, and replace it with some new stuff. I've got one great big lump of chicken breast in there, and I think I'm going to throw it away because it tastes so bad. It really is disgusting. We had the same when we bought some really, really cheap pork chops or loin chops, without the bone in. Back down south, it was Aldi and Tesco. Never again. We've not eaten them since. And I'll tell you this much, going to the local butchers we've got up here in the mountains, they're really, really good and reasonable too. I'll tell you what, it's a massive difference switching between butcher meat and supermarket stuff. I don't know what it is they're doing to the meat in supermarkets, but it's that bad. And some of you guys might remember when I met my partner, who I'm with now, back in 2016. She was vegan, and I went vegan for about 4 years, something like that. And when we first got together, she said to me, said meat isn't what it used to. That was back then. Meat now, right? If you get the cheapest stuff you can get from supermarkets, avoid it at all cost. Okay, it's not freaking good. It's really, really bad.
I'll tell you what, mate. There was a Dispatches documentary on food fraud, and on the English market retail scene, it was estimated at least 25% of all meat products that end up on supermarket shelves are not fit for human consumption and should have been converted into animal feed, pet food, that sort of thing. But the corruption and the villainy, criminality that goes on with the meat and food industry, a lot of it gets back into the human consumption. And the documentary estimated about at least 25% of all fresh meat products that are on the counter in supermarkets, not individual farmers, is not fit for human consumption. So that's why people might get gut rot and think, oh, maybe it was just I left it out for too long and all that sort of thing. So it is a concern. And as we know, with all the antibiotics that are used, I think it's like 25, 30 inspectors nationally for every single farm in England. And the majority of English farmers are reasonably okay, but then you've got the corrupt ones that when no one's looking, let's pump it with steroids, let that meat grow bigger. And there's just not enough aficionados to assess it and check it out. So it gets back into the food chain.
Do you know what? You saying that? I think it was 2021 it might have been, or late 2020. We visited, and I've done some online research, and we found this company right in the north of Hampshire, probably not far from where you are. And it specialized in organic grass-fed meat. And we drove all the way up there one day, and it was open. We went in there. Oh my God, we got this half shoulder of lamb because it's the biggest size we can put in our little slow cooker. And it was really reasonable price. It wasn't a lot of money, it was about £7 or something for this great big lump. And I'll tell you what, man, that was the first time in a very long time where you can actually taste real meat. Because, you buy cheap chicken, cheap beef, cheap pork. It doesn't really taste of anything. In fact, you have to drown it in some highly spiced sauce to make it palatable. And even, do you know what? My little chicken story back then, it got to the point where I was cooking curries with it. I was doing like stir fries with rice and stuff like that and stuff with noodles. And it's getting to the point where I was ending up with the last bit of food to eat on my plate was all of the bits of chicken. Because I was putting off going, it's not that nice. I thought, it's that bad. That's it, man. That supermarket chicken, if you get, I don't know what it is because I haven't bought it for years because, like I say, I had the whole freezer full of it. I just eat my way through it. I think you get like 3, 4, or maybe 5 great big chicken breasts in a pack, and it was a tenner. I don't know what it is now. And that stuff, oh my God, when you're eating it, sometimes it's like, it doesn't even, the texture's not like chicken. It's really rank. And going back to what Sue was like, the 5 things to improve your health to take, I would say take that out of your diet. So supermarket meats, and also you're going to be supporting farmers and stuff by going to butchers and things like that. At a pinch, if you really had to get meat from a supermarket, don't buy the pre-packaged stuff. If you go to the end of the aisle and you can get like the stuff which the internal butchers, as it were, where it's just got a bit of like cling film over the top rather than a proper box, that stuff is a bit better than the real cheap, horrible stuff. But if you want to go to Route 1, at least go to the butchers. If you're really keen, go online and search for the nearest to you grass-fed meat. Yeah, it is a bit expensive. And like I said, going right back to the live stream, lots of people are just spunking their money on stuff they don't need, like your Netflix, etc. Like I've been through already. All of a sudden, you ditch all of that stuff. You have more money, so you can get better stuff, which will taste better. It will be a lot better for you, and you won't have any ill side effects, which you will get from what Pete just mentioned, and rightly so, the antibiotics and all of the crap which they're putting into animals. And also, I remember my ex-wife, her dad was the biggest dairy farmer in the south of England, back down in the New Forest. And when I used to go around and spend time with him, lovely fella, he went into going from milking. He was transitioning into, if that's the term, supplying meat to Waitrose. So it's good quality meat. But even then, they had these things called stock blocks. They're big, round, plastic, heavy-duty tubs full up with these pellets that they was giving the cows to eat. I said to him, what the hell's in that? I thought it was supposed to be grass. He said, oh, we do that to subsidise, you know, the grass, etc. And it's got proteins and whatnot in it. And I said, what's the main ingredient in that stock block? And most of it was corn. I said, where's the corn come from? He said, oh, it's imported from the US. And I thought, whoa, straight away, guarantee that's GM corn. Now, GM corn from the US was 90% of all corn from the USA was genetically modified, and that's been for 15 years now. So when you think of genetically modified feed going into beef cattle in the UK, and at some point, depending on how much you cook it, I don't know, but over time, you know, that is going to get into your system and do something. So, yeah, you really want to see if you can try and set money aside for good quality meat. That would be my advice anyway. So okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up for this evening because we've done 2.25 hours straight.
Blinking hell.
And I'm going to go outside and I'm going to slot that werewolf.
Check out the wolf,
mate. That freaked me right out. Do you know, I really thought it was my boy upstairs, and I thought I've never heard him go. Ooh. So yeah, I don't care, mate. I'm up for it. I'm going outside. I mean, Pete's been to my gaff. We literally opened the front door. You've got like a little drive with trees, and there's nothing. There's mountains and nothing else out there. And whoa.
Did you get a bearing of what, when you'd heard it a few times? Did you get a bearing maybe the direction it was, or can you guess?
Literally about 10 feet from my front door, and I'm not
really.
Yeah, really. I think that's why. I mean, these walls, they're nearly 2 feet thick, solid stone, right? And there's a heavy-duty door. There's a great big porch and another door. So for that noise to permeate through into this house, that's not far away. I can't wait, man. I'm going to go out there in a sec. So, yeah.
It's playtime.
If I'm not back ever again, mate, you know I lost the battle with Mr. Wolf out there. So, so I'd like to thank everyone who's spent all of their time, and time is the most precious commodity, and I really do appreciate you spending your time here. Hopefully you've learned something and you've had a nice time. And I've had some donations on PayPal in the background. So we're going to look and say thank you to Gary for donating this evening. Is our only donator, and every little helps. Really appreciate that. And of course, if any of you guys want to, if you feel the need, there is donation links and loads of other stuff about the Olight torch, the power bank, which never got discussed, but I have to do that again. It all helps. There's loads of information below the video as well as other stuff. So please check that out if you've got a chance. When this video gets uploaded, I'll put Pete's YouTube channel link underneath here, if that's right with you, Pete. So
also Instagram as well. Tend to be more on that, but I will be going on YouTube. But also as well, I've had over the years, just finish off just in a nutshell, over the years, I've had people that have found out I've done life coaching. Oh, would you do a video? But that's not the theme of the channel originally. But I still keep getting feedback. You know, people, I have had clients that have followed my YouTube channel that have made contact, checked out my Mind Wise Motivate website, and then they become a client. So what I'm prospecting doing is doing maybe a Zoom workshop that people can log into to expand on things that we've covered tonight and just well-being issues. And then another time we can discuss it on another live stream if you want me back on. If you think of an idea and go, oh, yeah, maybe Pete can have something specific, then I'm, you know, more than welcome to share the ideas with people that are viewing your live stream as well. So
absolutely spot on, mate. Yeah, I will do, mate. I'll stick all of that links and stuff underneath, mate. No problem at all. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's come along, and I think we had nearly 800 people in here tonight, which is pretty bonkers, to be honest. And all of the moderators as well for literally holding this all together, because, you know, it's always the same. The more followers you get and the more trolls turn up, but we don't give them any power. And you moderators are awesome, absolutely spot on. And like I said, thanks to everyone who's donated on the live stream, and of course watching on the replay too. That really helps, especially PayPal. So without further ado, everybody, I'll let Pete say good night, and I'll say good night, and we're out of here.
Namaste on Shante. Peace,
that's him.
World spirit and universal energy.
He's been to the Himalayas, don't you know?
But I can be a right old slapping thigh pantomime dame sometimes if you want me to be. So. All right, well, thanks for that, Darren. I'll let you finish off. I'll see you'll probably want to say a final few things, but
we'll
say thanks a lot, and I'll catch up with you guys soon, and again with you, Darren, as well.
Funky.